Today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks and my code HMA. Both Brendan and I are sponsored by Prize Picks, which is America's #1 sports app. The app is really easy to use. Just pick more or less, lock in your lineup, go out there and make yourself some money. Prize Picks is available in many of the states in the United States, including Texas and California. Though in Washington, you will still have to use it on a casino's network if you want to use the app in full. They've got a new user offer where if you put down $5 on a lineup, they will get you $50 in lineup when you either use my code, HMA, or simply just click the link down in the description section below. Terms and conditions do apply. Please see their site for details, and always remember to gamble responsibly. Hello, and welcome to, of course, a special episode, a draft special episode here of the B&B show as we come back at you here a second night in a row. I am Brandon Kane. This is my cohort here on the left. Seahawks, Brendan Nelson. We've been streaming all day, covering this draft on our different ends, on our different channels. Really appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. And Brendan, how are we feeling here after day 2?
Like a floating head. That's what I am today, I guess. I'm a floating head.
Yes, Brendan will be Disco Inferno tonight. So
yes,
that's
clearly
how we're also going to be referring to him.
People love the floating head, Brendan, though. The floating head plays, so we're going to roll with it.
It does. It plays hard. It's a good look.
Yeah.
Good look. Well, we had an interesting job today to talk about Hawks picks. We're getting to that for sure. But let's, as we kind of did yesterday, I think that we were in unison a little bit, and just a little bit we had a chance to talk about before the stream here. In that when you look at really the notable stories, it's not that there isn't some notable additions by Seattle here in this draft. It is things to definitely talk about there, and they're helpful parts that are going to help this team moving forward. But it's as much a little bit as that you look across this NFC West division, Brendan, that's been the toughest division in football, I would argue, for almost going on 10 years, that it was by far the toughest division in football last year. And yet I find myself left wanting when I look through the rest of the teams in this division as to where their approach is. I think the Cardinals are minorly better almost because they get the draft a little bit higher. But boy, the Rams and the Niners seem to have fallen off of their rocker. They've fallen, they can't get up. They're hitting the button. No ambulance is coming. And they just kind of keep making head-scratching pick after head-scratching pick.
Yeah, one of my best friends is a 49ers fan, and like 10 minutes before we went live here, he messaged me on Discord, and he said, let me pull up the quote here. This might be Lynch's worst draft yet. And he's had some bad ones.
I was gonna say, was that the second sentence? Was that and let me tell you, that is saying something.
Yeah. I mean that's we both understand that John Lynch is not exactly batting 1,000 here, but yeah, and to me, the Rams, I think you could make an argument they've had the worst draft in all of football so far, given the gravity of their situation right now as a team. Like maybe you could find another team that's done worse technically, but when you consider the fact that this Rams team should be going for it, this does not make a lot of sense to me. And we'll spend a little bit of time talking about each team in the division. But yeah, I'm confused.
Yeah, I think the Rams are the one to stand out as the sorest thumb, and a handful of sore thumbs in this draft from the NFC West. And I think a lot of these picks don't seem to have a lot of resonance as far as instantaneous return. And so much like we had talked about yesterday, you're pulled once again to saying, okay, you tied in today an offensive lineman who's probably not starting for you this year. You already took with a quarterback yesterday somebody who's not going to be likely playing for you this year unless things go really bad.
Yeah.
And so, okay, you were thinking you need to push past Seattle, so it just basically comes down to McDuffie and kind of a league average-ish corner that is his cohort there in KC, that you think that's it, that was all you needed. Everything will be exactly the same from what you had last year, and then that will take you over the top. Are you reading it the same way?
Yeah, I did see one Rams fan who was trying to defend the Ty Simpson pick yesterday. And what he said was the Rams already have the best roster in the league anyway, so they didn't need to get anything great with that pick. And that's such a dangerous mentality to have. Like, even if it's true, that is just such a cavalier way to look at it, I think. And I don't think that there are very many teams out there that do things like that. And yeah, I don't get it either. And, you know, I'm looking at it. I'm looking at these picks, and the Ty Simpson thing, which we already talked about at length yesterday, but they take a pretty decent tight end at 50. What was it, like 61? So Max Clare, I know we didn't talk about him because we didn't talk about tight ends this year, but I did look at him. I think he's all right, but are the Rams going to turn around and trade Colby Parkinson now so they have room for Clare? And if so, I mean, Claire's not going to be better than Colby Parkinson was last year. So you didn't get better. You just kind of, you hope, stayed the same. And that's the best case scenario. There's a world where you get a little bit worse, but you get to save a little bit of money. It's like, why are you thinking about saving money right now? I don't understand that. And then Keegan Trost, I mean, you're deep in the third round of a bad draft at that point. Maybe looking for a backup tackle is not the worst thing in the world, but even with me saying that, there was still stuff you could have done that could have actually made a meaningful impact on the team this year. So, yeah, I don't understand what the Rams are doing here. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, you say about money savings, you got the 4 contracts that you haven't dealt with up until this point that are coming up now for extension, probably just after this draft. And you probably don't quite have enough money to fit it all underneath this cap for this year. So you're like, how can we pull from this or that or dump a Parkinson contract? But that decision making isn't leading you to putting the best team on the field then necessarily for 26. It's then trying to hold on to what you can hold on to so you don't have to make a trade. And that's partly where I just go on this one, man. It's been a tough draft for, I think, a lot of teams out there, Brendan. I don't think there's been a lot of like a collection of like 10 teams that have really done smart. In recent years, actually, I have been able to say that. I think in other years, there's been more of a collective consensus on where teams are picking guys. I felt like today in general that you got into probably about midway into the second round, and it became more of a feeling from teams that what I was getting was like you'd get into the 5th round. We were like, oh, that guy's going there, or really?
Yeah.
Here? Or this guy's still dropping down and he shouldn't here, but there must be something afoot with why he is.
Yeah, I got that sense too. And I scratched my head at a lot of the picks that were made with some of the players still on the board. Like we saw so many cornerbacks get taken ahead of Brandon Cisse. We saw safeties get taken ahead of Zach. I had some guys come off my board. What?
You're okay. You froze for a second there. You're good. You're back.
Yeah. I saw some guys that I had graded as like 6th round players go today. So it did get a little bit hairy, but I guess that's just what happens when you have a not very good draft. So maybe it's not the most shocking thing in the world, but it confuses me greatly that a guy like Kamari Ramsey is still on the board. Like that's a really good player too. So there's still some good stuff out there. And for the Rams to say, no, we don't need any of that, we're good with what we have, it does confuse me.
Fair to say that the unicorn tight end theory I've been working on, being that the new position, like Tyreek Hill was a couple of years ago, the new sort of thing everyone's chasing after is kind of this move H-back tight end type. Because I know that this was a deep draft theoretically with tight ends, but my goodness, man, we're going to have more tight ends taken in the first 3 rounds than we've seen in probably 20 years in any draft, if maybe even further beyond that.
Right. But some of these guys are not the unicorn. Like the guy Jacksonville took, Bo Kircher, or I might be pronouncing it wrong, but you know who I'm talking about, right? The A&M Aggie guy. He's a pure blocking tight end. He is like a tight end that you pulled out of the 1960s. And I was shocked when he got drafted. I was very confused by that. I don't understand that at all.
Well, they got Strange out there. It's probably a little more of the movie. You need one move. You need one in line. Usually need 2 in lines. But I do think you saw a couple guys in there that Oscar Delp types where it's like, you're not working off a lot of production. It's more of this physical frame they're bringing that excites you about them. And so it was kind of weird to see some of the way that this worked. And though we got to bang around on these NFC West teams a little bit for how they operated, this was kind of an NFL thing this year. And it's got to be taken into account in your outlook of this draft, because we're going to talk a lot about what the Seahawks did and how they did it and why they did it. And the thing that cannot be denied at this point by how you see this draft roll, I'll be interested to see if you agree, of course, Brendan, but from my standpoint becomes pretty undeniable, is that this draft isn't weak because a lot of people said it. It's not weak because some draft pundits said it collectively and they're just saying stuff. It's not weak because people like you and I have said it. It's weak because we saw the bottom line of NFL teams in this draft the last 2 days show you with their pick and how they were going after their selections. that this is a tough draft. And it was a really hard one for them to quite spot where to put the right value and where to select guys appropriately.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. And this is just what happens sometimes in the ebbs and flows of making NFL drafts, right? And I do think that some teams are still shooting themselves in the foot. I don't think it completely excuses what the Niners are doing. I don't think it completely excuses what the Rams are doing. But I think that especially in the latter portion of today's draft action, you saw a lot of teams just be like, okay, this is my guy. I'm going to take this guy. I don't really care about value. I don't really care about objective positional value. I'm just going to take my guy. And not a lot of thought goes into it other than that. Like Marlon Klein, the Michigan tight end, who I think has barely played like one season worth of part-time football. And I think it was Green Bay maybe took him in the third round. It might have even been late second.
There were so many taken, I couldn't keep track.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
And it just feels like you went, okay, we don't care about anything else. This is just some guy I like, so I'm going to take him because I like him. And yeah. I don't think the Seahawks were entirely immune to doing that as well over the last couple of days, but I think there are some teams that did it worse than we did by a long shot.
Very egregious ones out there in the way. And you did mention that. And I think that's going to be a bit of how I talk about this, as we do, as always on the show, try folks to get to a nuanced position on this when we talk about the Hawks draft, but it's something to put into consideration for what's going on along with everybody going into this draft. And we mentioned the Rams. Bottom line, again, just looking at this, not the individual picks, but just a bottom line. You got a backup quarterback's not playing for a couple of years, development guy. You've got an offensive lineman who's probably not going to see the field as long as hopefully things go ideal for them, and not necessarily a no-brainer great player beyond that, or a great pick beyond that, where they found some amazing value.
Well, the thing is there, even if Simpson plays this year, that's not good. You're not happy about that, and he's not going to help you win, right? Yeah. Like Ty Simpson's not going to help you win more than somebody like Joe Flacco would have. Flacco probably helps you win more than Ty Simpson would as a rookie. Remember, Ty Simpson barely played in college.
That's absolutely right. And we're talking through this tight end situation, and it seems like it may come back to being the cap casualty thing because you're deep enough into the Parkinson contract to where you can cut that, add this guy, save the money. But because now you have the extensions on deck, you don't have any more buttons to push. You don't have any more cap to kind of then create. I mean, you can theoretically if you really want to go hard, but at that point you've kind of shot what you got to shoot. And now they're in this position where this was where the draft was so important for them to find that, it's not maybe difference-making element, but find that extra bit of fuel that could push them past us and how they were set up. And maybe they still sit back there and they go, well, we got the better roster. I don't know how you sit there and think that when we beat them 2 times out of 3. And the third time we could have easily beat them if our quarterback didn't intercept the ball just 3 times instead of 4. It seems like a weird kind of position to be like, well, we just sit back in the cut and we're the same thing we were before. But that to me is so wild to this, is that you have quantifiably 3 guys not going to help you next year. And that's you now not taking a step forward. Now it all relies on McDuffie having just gotten paid a $30 million deal and hoping that he can play up at that same kind of level they did. And it's really all, you've thrown it all onto the kind of that. Your chips have all gone to that one side of it. And I think that's kind of precarious, Brendan.
Yeah, you are less well equipped to handle a Puka or Devontae Adams injury this year than you were last year. At least last year you had Tutu Atwell. That's
right. Yeah, I agreed. Now you look at the receiving core, it is thin. And Puka plays very violently at the position. And, you know, he's had an injury history going back to his days at Washington. And then you've got Devontae with the hammy. I mean, it's something to monitor there. And the receivers, the rest of this draft isn't exactly going to be great now that we've had kind of a run on them. So you got the Rams doing this, which is making us all laugh and point. And then you go, well, certainly it's only just going to be one team. This division's far too competitive, Brendan, for this to be something we're going to see replayed out with a couple of other teams. But indeed, the Niners said, hey, hold my beer, Rams. Let me show you what's going on. First, they trade their happy ass up out of the first round. We get them at the top of the second round. Now, I don't necessarily hate this pick. It's just that I hate their approach. And Stribling's was a riser for me as a receiver late, Brendan, in this process. I'd like to be here about where you stand on him, but he was late in the process, liked him. But the other 2 picks were totally, to me, reach for need picks to me. They the one guy retire off the edge. Okay, let's go to Romelo Height. You have nothing at running back. You're not sure about Garendo. Bad health there. McCaffrey with where he is age and touch-wise. Okay, let's go get a running back. and not even really a real highly graded running back, like not a consensus, like high up top 5 guy. This was a weird draft for me for the Niners and their approach. Both they're reaching for need and not necessarily grabbing, even solidity within the need that they're reaching for, which I think Seattle did do in their approach, which might have been similar.
Yeah, I had Stribling in like my late 4th, early 5th, and I did like him a little bit more than the aggregate. Like the aggregate big boards had him in the 6th, just to give an idea of where they viewed him. I liked him a little bit more than that. I don't know why he's going at 33. Like, if you really like him that much, I think you can trade down and still get him much later. If the Niners had not taken him at 33 and had not taken him with their later picks, he might still be on the board. Like, that would not surprise me at all. This was not a highly touted player going into the draft. I do like him a little bit because I do think he's a good vertical threat. I know the Niners need some downfield speed to break the offense open, but you can't tell me that's good business to spend the 33rd overall pick on a player that was probably going to be there in round 4.
No, I wouldn't. And I was higher than you on him, but I'm still kind of into a little bit of the depths of the 3rd round where I would like to be taking him. Not at the spot where you're selecting him. And good drafting is a lot about where you take guys as much as who you're taking. And he'll be useful. They'll find a way to work him. I'd also like, Brendan, just their willingness and constant just first-round pick, Ayuk, first-round pick, Pearsall. Here's another almost quasi first-round pick to Stribling. Do they move Pearsall now, which there's rumors they might be thinking about doing that with it? It just kind of seems like they're getting wide receiver obsessed a little bit too much for an offense that should be driven by its offensive line, its running game. I don't quite get it, and these picks were, again, to me, a little needy. The other team in this division, Brendan, that was a little bit better by a shade, let's say, was Arizona. The Love pick, look, he's going to help him. He's going to make him better. We know that, right? But was it a great value pick to be taking a running back like that there, who's not necessarily the likes of the talent of which maybe you take Robinson over him, wouldn't you? Bijan Robinson and Love coming out. Which one would you take?
Oh yeah. Bijan's generational. Love's not. I don't think Love's generational. Okay. I would take John T over Love. Love is great.
Okay. We're on the same. So we're completely on the same page. I'm Barkley. I'm Bijan. I'm Ashton. I'm right there with you on all those and saying that, okay, let's put this in perspective about where this guy quantifiably lands historically. Yeah. And I think he's behind those guys. So first, okay, it's a good pick, but what do we put behind that with a little bit of a qualifier, I suppose you would say?
You could have done better.
You could have done better. You could have done better. It's not you trading back, maximize the picks. They want to trade back. It's like, and I kind of wondered, did you just try to ask for too much? And then when you didn't get too much, you were like, well, we'll just do this instead. And it was this like backup move you did instead of like just taking what you could kind of get. I then started to get a little scared, Brendan, because I saw Chase Basantas and I'm like, oh no, they're smartening up a little bit here out there in Arizona. The heat's not quite gotten to him. The heat stroke has finally subsided, but then they come right back around to those Glendale ways. Carson Beck.
Yeah, that was great.
Top of the 3rd round.
The thing is, I couldn't even react to it on stream because it was right after our pick, so I was still processing Bud Clark. And then the Cardinals decided to drop Carson Beck on my lap, and I'm like, I really want to talk about this right now, but I got to finish the Bud Clark thing. But let's just go ahead and react about it now. Yeah, he's not going to be a good NFL quarterback, right? He's going to be like what Clayton Tune is probably. He's going to be, at best, he's going to be what like Case Keenum was. Like, there's not a lot there.
There's not. And he's missing mobility and arm strength, arm talent. He's got to be such an anticipatory thrower with his arm strength. And it's one where he's not a good anticipatory thrower. He tries it, but it's not like it's up and down whether it's going to be there or not. And what ends up happening is because he knows he can't trust himself down the field with the anticipation throws, everything turns down to check down city or drag routes. And he could get away with that in Miami where they had the badass defense and they could run the ball and he could just kind of do the least while just kind of holding his water, being the definition of a game manager. He's got to push the ball down the field a little bit more than that. So this is going to be, to me, a completely wasted pick by the Cardinals. This to me is them saying, damn, we lost out on Ty Simpson, and that sucks. And we also lost out on Aller. And boy, we don't like Nussmeier enough, so I guess we'll just go back to this. But this is a just horrible pick for the Cardinals. Horrible pick for the Cardinals. This is a throwaway. And again, the first overall selection in the 3rd round. And it's a throwaway pick at the quarterback position.
Yeah.
That to me is just This is why you're not a good organization. You got your mindset on you had to go get a quarterback. And then when the chips didn't fall right for you to do so, you were still like, we'll force it. We'll make it happen, even if the fit's not there to make it happen.
Yeah. I mean, I love it, but he's I can't say I really get that one. You've got I mean, honestly, like I think that Clayton Tune has as good a chance of being a franchise quarterback as Carson Beck.
Mm-hmm. Well, now they're carrying 3 quarterbacks next year just because they draft in the 3rd round, even if that turns to be the case. Like how you're like, they're like, oh crap, Tune is much better. This guy's never going to see the ability. You just put a 3rd round pick on him though, so we can't just release him. So I guess we're just sitting with a 3rd quarterback on a roster that's not exactly deep and not exactly can afford to sit with 3 QBs on it.
They got spooked by the Jacoby Brissett holdout, and they're like, we got to get another quarterback.
They did. I wonder how much Jacoby, to your point, how much did Jacoby maybe even just to like 10, 15% push this along because of his whole contract cry that you got to pay me now? I mean, it had to factor in a little bit, right? Yeah, I'm not saying wholly. I'm not saying 75%, but like 15% still too much.
Mm-hmm. So that was nice. By the way, real quick, back to Deshaun Stribling. According to Deshaun Stribling himself, he has never met John Lynch or Kyle Shanahan. At no point did he meet with them personally. So if you believe the Niners did it just because this was their guy, I don't even know if that's true. Like, how can he be your guy if you never met him?
It's one where I think, I don't know. I see where the pick fits to where they like the yak guy that can be physical. It's got a little bit more weight to him at the receiver position. They probably like a little bit more where he blocks. I get where they like him, but if you're going to play that game of we won't meet with him, that's more of like a team's coming up to snake us. No one was coming up to snake you for Stribling at that point. But this is also a wild draft. Who knows? Maybe so too. I mean, it's because it is such a just very draft, but neither you nor I nor the consensus had Stribling anywhere close to this territory. And so that does seem to be a little bit of an indicator here about, they maybe outthought themselves a little bit on this one, outsmarted themselves perhaps.
Yeah. You're not going to get me to sign off on that one being good. I know you liked him a little bit more than I do, but there's no way 33rd overall needs to go to a place like that. You had offensive linemen you can take. You need offensive linemen. You need edge rushers. You could have gotten some edge rushers there. TJ Parker, maybe. There was something you could have done there that was better. Agreed
in full. Well, it takes us over here to Seattle today, which you ended up picking twice, despite the fact that they did trade back today. Mm-hmm. And so we've got the trade back goes back first, which, as far as it landed, Brendan, didn't, and it was a fan favorite one. It was one of our favorite ones, of course, was that you really didn't lose anybody necessarily of note that you probably would have really wanted to in moving back as you did to pick up that extra day 3 pick, except for maybe Dunker. But let's first concentrate in on where we're at with the first pick which was 2nd round. Seattle took Bud Clark out of TCU, a safety. Well, where did you land on this pick?
I like the pick a lot. I would not necessarily say that I loved it because I do think there were some things they could have done that would have been better. And I do think there are some things with Bud Clark that make you worry a little bit, but overall I did grade him to be about a late 2nd, early 3rd guy in this draft. I want to stress that in this draft specifically, but to me, the thing with Bud Clark that maybe elevates him above a guy like Wheatley, who I did evaluate slightly better than Clark is giving you a guy who can be a safety and a guy who I think is going to be a really good nickel corner in the NFL as well. One thing to really highlight with Bud Clark to me is the fact that he may be very small, but he's actually pretty tall for a safety, so he can add weight. And he's got speed to burn. He's ran a 4.41. Even if he adds some weight and gets down to like a 4.45, that's fine. He could even get down to a 4.5 and it's still okay. Like he's got good arm length as well for the position, 31.5 inches. He is a ball hawk. He had a ridiculously good interception percentage over the course of his college career at TCU. I think he has like 10 interceptions combined over the last 3 seasons he played. He's really good at closing with his downhill trigger, the nickel versatility. Like I know we kind of have an abundance of nickel corners here, but it is nice to have that safety blanket of knowing that at the nickel position, you are always going to be good in Seattle. And I think we've talked about this before. The nickel corner position has become more and more important over the last several years, to the point where it feels like all the best teams have a really good nickel corner.
Yeah, I think to your point on that, you have also with Nicky Manwari, as fantastic a season as he had last year. He had 2 separate points of injuries with the ankle, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that what you really don't want is the domino effect of Witherspoon having to slide inside. He can do it, but you'd like to just keep him on the outside and let him flourish out there. Whereas now you have your capable, competent backup you can bring out there while still having your safety position be able to rock and roll. I kind of saw him as maybe a potentially improved version of a Quentin Lake for the Rams and sort of, how he went about his business and played. It was 15 interceptions, by the way, 4 years, 15 interceptions.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So a
nice
guy that, and he's got a peanut till and punch. So he gives you that, and he can knock the ball free and out, which is very cool. Really, really interesting dichotomy what you get in him, because he gives you really all around play first and foremost, and that he's a top notch run defender, come up tackle, like he's slight, but he'll get in there. He's not worried about doing that. And then he's got some coverage skill on the back end on top of it. There is some grabby stuff at times, and you can catch him in moments here or there where it's not the best, especially when in the slot and he's got to run man, which you could make the argument to me. Maybe that's more of the opening for him long-term to go to the safety position. So he's not as much left in those coverage situations, which cause him to get a little bit grabby. But having a guy for the nose for the ball, as I've been thinking about this, beyond whether he's playing in the slot or at the safety position, you're going to be in a defense, Brendan, that's going to be playing ahead a lot. And you've already seen in this Mike McDonald defense over a couple of years, them really getting in teams into those third and long situations quite a bit and getting into, hey, we know it's going to be pass. And when that ball is up in the air and it is game, and you have a guy that can be instinctually just find that ball, whether it's because he just naturally has the magnet of life in him to have, some guys just have that, right, Brendan? Or whether it's he just goes and gets it and he's got that kind of instincts to where he can just go pounce, which this guy kind of does. You don't get 15 interceptions by accident and tip balls. No, that's not how his tape reads. So he supplies that at this point, both the insurance and also giving you a guy that maybe his best fit long-term would be safety, but versatility too. This defense, Brendan, as a defender, that I think that we're learning, one of the things that you really want to see Mike McDonald ask his defenders, especially on the back end, is what can you all do? I know what you can do well. Okay, you can do that well. You can do that well. What is all that you can do, though? How can I use you in full? What is your full? And the more full, the more I'm going to be like, yeah, that's my bag.
Yeah, that's the kind of player that we talk about, right? We don't want the guys that are really, really good at one thing and bad at everything else. We want players that can do a little bit of everything, so that way we can be creative. We can be unpredictable, especially on defense with Micah. We've talked about this before. We don't want the guys that are only good at one thing. And when I look at Bud Clark, I see a guy, maybe he's not a great tackler yet. Maybe he will occasionally miss a tackle. He's a little bit small, but I think he's putting himself in positions. I think he's willing against the run. If he had some weight, he could become a pretty good tackler, I think. I don't see the Reek Woolen unwillingness to get involved in the run game stuff. I see a guy who knows how to get to the spot and will go put his best foot forward trying to make the play. I think he's a smart player. He reads and reacts well. Now, he is lean and he's not very strong. He can get pushed around a little bit. There have been some injuries in his college career. Nothing over the top severe, but there have been some injuries. And he is a guy I think you can get to bite on stuff. He's over aggressive, but that's something you can learn. And he's going to have the opportunity to learn here because he's probably not going to play a ton year one. He's going to play some. But we don't need a starting safety at the moment, I don't think. And we don't need a cornerback to play a ton of snaps for us. He's probably going to get to kind of play a utility backup role. And I think that's all the better for his development.
Yeah, I love the old Carroll philosophy of you find, whether it's a freshman in college or whether it's a rookie in the pros, you find a role for the guy in his first year. And you don't make it super expansive, ideally, so he can really grow into what he's going to become. And I think, as I look at it, probably to me, it's going to be the dime defender next year. He'll be the fourth cornerback on the field for your team when you go into those looks, I feel like. And what you like with him versus what you'd have to do in those situations if you went to Pritchett or Noah, if you had to go to Noah, is that he actually is going to tackle and get in there. And those guys, I think there is still some questions with those, whether or not they have the get after it enough spirit to help you in those situations to do that. So, I think that's where you could put him right into that role, find some value out of him instantaneously wherever his fit is. And you mentioned the slight build, which I think is a valid point of this. Kind of reminds me a little of the Kobe Bryant situation a little bit. I know he's not coming from outside corner, but they're kind of similarly built as far as size dimensions go, if I'm not mistaken. And he might be a little bit quicker than Kobe was, but Kobe had the ball skills, the peanut pill and punch a little bit, his slot. You didn't eventually have to move into safety. You could see him kind of growing into his strength and being just fine there, I think, long term. So I think it was a steady pick here overall. It was a little bit early for me for where I had him on the board, but this is a year where the board was going to be a little bit less certain with how much variance there was going to be across team to team for where they saw these prospects, the Seattle Seahawks included in that. And you're going to get, unlike the Rams, you're going to be able to find a role for this guy, and he's going to find some time on the field to help you next year to hopefully go out there and repeat.
Yeah, I think I like the pick a little more than you did, but we're both in the same place on it. I think he's a good player. One thing about this Seahawks defense last year, as good as they were, they did not force as many turnovers as you would expect an elite defense to. This is a turnover creating guy. This is a guy who's put on this earth to force turnovers.
And you get those moments you think about, Brendan, where you're up in maybe 6 points in the game. You know what I mean? It's late in the game, and it's down in that spot we've been this year where we see we can get up on teams. Can we just kind of put them away then? And those moments that happen and occur where it's, 1 minute to go in the third quarter, and here comes that overthrow, and Bud undercuts the route, brings it back up to the 35-yard line. Offense gets a couple more first downs, leads the clock down. Boom, you get the touchdown. You're up by 2 scores. Now there's just not enough time remaining. And it's like we would do those kind of, we'll just pull this game down in that way, and we'll suffocate everything down and kind of speed everything up a little bit on the back of that. And this kind of guy that can do that, to your point on taking the ball away, can be a vital thing to add into the mix to be able to help get that like final punch that you don't always have an even good player sometimes as far as those ball skills or ability to take the ball away.
Yeah, and I do think he'll be a safety as well eventually, like you. He'll be a safety that can come up and play nickel, but I see him as a safety ultimately. I think he'll bulk up a little bit and be pretty good at it.
Yeah, because I really want to maximize his eyes to the quarterback, field read stuff. First, when you're in the slot, so much of what you're doing is man and reactionary, which he can do it, but it's also like having him in that position to really be able to be cerebral and think things through, team captain. This is going to be an all ball kind of guy. If you want a guy like we look for Seahawks that are all ball, and you don't have to question whether their spirit's going to be there or they're just going to be a check-in guy or just a clock-in guy. He's not going to be like that, but give him that chance to read and react, and I think that's where those picks will really come from, is when you give him a chance with some space and a chance to think things through a little bit, and then he can jump on it.
Mm-hmm. So I'm down with it.
And so the Seattle Seahawks came back around here into the next round, trading back. Did you shed a little single tear for Dunker? Did your hair grow out just a little bit for Dunker? Just like a little, could you feel like werewolf style? Just kind of.
Yeah, I felt that one a little bit.
Just a little bit.
I will say very clearly, this team did not seem to think very much of him. And for whatever reason, like I don't believe for 1 second they were like, oh, we're going to trade back here, and we know Dunker's going to be there at 99 anyway, and we'll get him too, and we'll just be like, oh, wow, we got everything we wanted. No, I think they traded back probably because they were like, we don't want him. And this kind of goes back to something that I talk about sometimes on my channel. I think this team likes Anthony Bradford a lot. I think they think he's good. And I know that we do this whole thing with our videos, and a lot of people on the internet who just think that he is the worst thing ever made by a human. But I think the team thinks Anthony Bradford is good, and we kind of just have to accept that they are willing to live with the problems with him because they think he brings something to the table that is valuable. And I think when you see something like this, where they have the opportunity to replace him over and over and over again, and they don't do it, and they're at least willing to wait until after his contract is up to replace him in 2027, they want him starting. They like him. And I know maybe we don't like that, but I do see where that mentality comes from. I don't think it's completely dismissible.
No, I don't think so as well. I think those are all very good points on your part. And I think that the team with Bradford going next year, contract year, you're going to get his best. Perhaps this also shows they've got a little bit more faith in Haynes that remains, that some have wondered about there. And so you do drift down. You get the extra pick in day 3, which could prove to be helpful, Brandon, because of the fact that it may be harder to recruit undrafted rookie free agents because of the fact that You got a Super Bowl roster. You got a guy you're returning almost all these starters. Like, where's the pathway? I don't think you can get a running back here at this point. Like, if I'm running back, I'm like, yeah, no, boss. I'm going to go over here to Miami or something, where I actually got a chance to even just make the practice squad.
Yeah.
But Seattle does come back after trading back, and they move on another defender, grabbing my favorite pick of the draft here so far, which is Julian Neal.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think about the man from Arkansas? That man from Arkansas.
Well, we know he will have no problem playing on the outside in the NFL. We can say that. In a draft full of corners that have very short arms, in some cases suspiciously short, Julian Neal is not lacking in that area. So that's one thing he's got going for him. He will be playing outside corner in the NFL. Although some people have said he has the flexibility to slide inside occasionally, so we'll see about that. But yeah, Julian Neal, I had him as a middle to late third round guy, so I think the value was right about on the spot. Big dude, long, got a lot of weight to him. Totally willing to come up and run support, which is very important around here. We like that. And obviously he's not necessarily fast, but he's explosive. Like the way one of the guys in my Discord put it, he's got great recovery speed, even though he doesn't have great straight line speed. And for a guy that size to be as explosive as he is, he jumped a broad jump 11 feet, 2 inches. 11 feet, 2 inches on a broad. That is insane for a guy who is this big. And he's got pretty good ball skills as well. His coverage metrics on PFF are very good the last 2 years. Really hard to get completions past him because his length allows him to just stick his arm in there constantly. He's going to be great in press overall, I think, because of his length and because of his strength. Now, the main issue with him, I think, is just he's not a finished product in terms of the cerebral parts of the game. He needs time to really learn how to read an offense and understand route concepts and really translate what he sees in front of him into this is where I need to go. But he's going to have the time to do that because we do not need a starting corner at this moment because you've got Witherspoon, you've got Job, you've got Eman Wari, and now you even have Bud Clark as kind of your dying corner. So Julian Neal is going to get the opportunity to learn. And I think that once he learns, he's going to be very good. So I like this pick a lot too.
Yeah, I find myself feeling these a real solid pick here. It's the value that I love most and maybe about this pick versus the other picks. I think those other picks got some good value to them, and they're another player that I think is going to find his way to help you next year, Brendan. Bigger corner. So if you get some matchups out there where there's some bigger wide receivers and teams are trying to kind of target your undersized nature out there, that you can kind of go after them with a guy here that can run up and get up and press and run press man. That's kind of what you do with Woolen at times. You say, okay, Woolen, get up here and press. Run your man on the backside with this guy and just stay tight in coverage. We'll run zone to the other side of the field and kind of do some other stuff. So I really like that he has that and then an ability to also play off coverage with zone and off coverage. There's a lot of corners that did that in this draft, Brendan, which was cool to see because so many years we see guys that'll sometimes just be living in press, living in off coverage. And I didn't think that there was a real big, huge distance between him and some of those guys in the second round that we talked about, be it the Dalen Everetts or Malik Muhammad's or maybe even a Colton Hood, you could maybe make the argument, or a Cisse argument that he should be more up into those range of guys when it was all said and done as far as how truly good a player he is all around. Because on top of playing those coverages, really top end run defender and a guy that again gives you maybe a little bit of a pathway, as you said, to, okay, maybe he goes into the slot. He gives you versatility to be able to do different things in coverage. Probably can run into doing safety stuff post snap when you want to roll things, if that's how you want to roll it. I also kind of wonder too, Brendan, if 3 years down the line from now, we might not come to find Julian Love as our free safety and Bud Clark as our strong safety, into the future of this. I'm not saying that's the way they would go with it, but wouldn't surprise me too if Julian ended up making that transition to free safety. Not that he can't hold up as a corner here, but that just he's got an ability to give you maybe some real fluency to his play in the long term as well. I wonder about him in the slot too much because the flipping the hips thing is where he gets in trouble. Yeah. I think you're right about the explosion and the speed there, but he's got to oftentimes have the makeup because they flip his hips and then he's got to go get to the makeup speed point to get back up to the receiver, which is good that he has it, but you're still creating some separation there in those moments when it goes down like that.
Yeah. I mostly view him as a corner, but the safety thing is interesting, especially if he learns how to read an offense over the next couple of years. So one way or the other, I think he will eventually be an important part of this team. him and Clark. I think they will both be starters at some point, or at least they'll play a good amount. So I'm not worried about that.
I think he's the first corner off the board for you this year in the depth chart, because as much as Nehemiah Pritchett and the team's high on him, my opinion on this, Brendan, will come down to, see if you agree, this guy's going to tackle better. And Nehemiah's not going to cover well enough more past this guy to necessitate him to be on the field, in my opinion. And I think there's a pretty big difference between how Neal plays the run game, how he tackles, versus what you see from Pritchett and Igbinohi, for that matter.
Yeah, it's Igbinogheny. I learned how to pronounce it because it kind of rhymes with mahogany. Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
I'm going with Davison.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, you might not have to call him anything because he may not make this team. I'm not so sure that he will ultimately be there.
I'm not either. It might come down to that, who between him and Pritchett, who makes it, is like who decides they want to tackle. Whoever decides they want to tackle is on the team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, I think the pick is very good. I'm not going to say it was amazing. I don't think that it was. I think that it's a good pick. I think the value is good. I think the addressing of need is also a valid consideration. It's just one of those things where sometimes the players don't learn. Like right now, I feel like he's not a very cerebral corner and he needs to learn, and that's fine. But sometimes they just don't learn. And there are guys in this draft that you look at and go, they already know what's up. Like Chris Johnson, no problem. He knows what's up, how to play zone. He knows how to read an offense. So
true enough.
You know,
that's one of the things you hope you got in Mike McDonald, I suppose, Brendan, is that coach who can teach anybody on, you got the will, if you got the want, you got the desire, I'll give you the brain. I'll be your Frankenstein. Maybe he's got that on him.
Yeah. So I'd give both picks today like a B+. Maybe I'd edge Neal into an A-. I could be talked into that.
And I'd probably be a little bit, just from a value standpoint, with where I thought we landed on the Clark one. I'm okay with the pick. I can see the principle behind it. And we're going to talk in a second here a little bit about the approach on this in general from Seattle in this draft, but it was all in the B-ish. It was B- range probably for me on the first pick. And then this one's an A- for me, probably where it stands with Neal. So I really do like that one. I want to talk to you a bit about that approach, Brendan, but before I do that, we've got to pay a few bills, you and I. We got to do it.
We got to keep the lights on here.
We got to keep the lights on here. And we're going to do so here with, sorry, get my little asset. Where's my asset at here? Where's this thing at?
We'll do it live.
We'll do it live. Screw it. Do it live. My theme went out on me, Brennan. So it was my theme, man. My theme, I tell you.
Huh. Weird.
No, that's not it. Well, that's kind of it. Yeah, that's good enough.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Hey, this show, Brendan's show, my show, you've seen it all over the place, and that's for a good reason, because Prize Pick is the #1 sports app running the game today. Prize Pick, sponsoring all our shows, showing some love throughout this year to these channels. So if you show some love to them, give us support to us, go make some money. Use your brain, use your sports acumen to go out there and make yourself some money. We got basketball, baseball, combined together a ticket. Go for the over, go for the under. There's so many different options. Hell, they even got right now with the draft, you can pick players, where you think those players are going to go. They give you those options there. So a lot of fun to be had here, a lot of variance to be had. They're not going to narrow you down into different columns and corners. And when you use our code, both me and Brendan, we got the same code. You don't have to pick. You don't have to put one stabbing into the heart and then reward the other. Instead, just HMA. And when you do a $5 lineup, they'll give you $50 back in return. Terms and conditions, of course, do apply. In the state of Washington, there are some limitations, but if you go to a casino, you can use the app in full when you're on their network. Big shout out to Prize Picks. Shout out to you guys for using the code. And please utilize that one today. Go make yourself some money.
Yep. Go check them out.
Well, I wanted to ask about one piece of approach here. We'll get to the donations, folks. Bear with just 1 second here. One last kind of question, just wanted to pose to the floor to Brendan here in this draft. I do feel like Brendan, and this is a commonality of this draft for many teams, but it is a bit of a hard sell outside of Neal and within this draft to say necessarily Seattle's lived in the value train as heartily as they have in other past seasons. May not be the worst of things. Does not mean that this has to be unsuccessful or that these players don't bring you help next year that helps you again go back and win another Super Bowl. But do you see it the same way, or am I a little off base on that one?
No, I think that it's very clear this team is hitting this draft with the mentality of, we are trying to win another Super Bowl this year, and we are going to focus on things that we think will help us do that, rather than focusing on things that are going to make this team as good as possible over the next decade. And I think it most obviously shows up with Jadarian Price. And we did talk about this at length yesterday, so I don't feel the need to repeat everything. But the way I put it is that Jadarian Price, in the happy path, like this is the good timeline right here, will probably be a good running back for the Seahawks for 4 to 5 years. That's probably like the happy path. I don't think he'll ever be a franchise back. He'll never be a bell cow back, because he wasn't even that in college, right? He got 10 touches a game in college. I don't see.
I mean, we're seeing the death of the bell cow back too, though, aren't we? I mean, This isn't just a thing with him. It's like, it's in general. Even Jeremiah Love had this guy as the counter punch to help balance the load, rather than just bury it all on his back.
Right. But even beyond that, like, you wouldn't, I don't see him being an elite running back. I don't see him being Bijan or Jonathan Taylor. That's beyond his ceiling to me. I think he'll be a good back for 4 to 5 years.
The thing I wonder, and the thing I was thinking about the more I thought about last night when I put together sort of the Terrell Davis talking about a video, was that, look, Terrell Davis was a really good talent. Does Terrell Davis go for 2,000 yards if he goes to the New England Patriots at that time? Or if he goes to the Buffalo Bills at that time? And the point being a little bit is that sometimes the high production that comes in these running backs and places they go to, much like with quarterbacks, comes from like, what is your landing zone? And having all of the supporting cast and all these starters and all this stuff at your back, hip, pocket, may in a lot of ways end up elevating his production beyond really where I think you're right about the talent itself, saying this is where you'll kind of be. But then maybe the supporting cast around him and the defense and the competent offense that keeps you from being able to focus on him allows for him to find more production beyond his talent at that point too.
It is possible. And I see what you're saying with the Terrell Davis. Is it Terrell or Terrell? I think it's Terrell.
Terrell Davis.
Yeah. I see what you're getting at there for sure. But the point I was making is that, like, okay, that's like the good path with him. But and the argument I was making is, I just don't think that's how you win Super Bowls. I don't think that's how you build the best team. Spending a first round pick on a guy who you hope will be a good running back for 4 to 5 years. I think you get there by drafting edge rushers that could be great for a decade. I think you do it by drafting cornerbacks or wide receivers that can be great for a decade. Like some of the guys we could have taken, not all of them, but some of them had that kind of potential. Their happy path was way bigger than Jadarian Price's happy path in my mind. And I still believe that. But, and this is the other side of this, Jadarian Price is going to do more for this team in 2026 than any of those players would have, right? Like, you draft even, like, let's say you could have drafted Chris Johnson. Obviously he wasn't there, but if you could have drafted Chris Johnson's not getting on the field and he's not impacting the team the way Jadarian Price can in 2026, just because of the roster we have.
Yeah. That's very fair. There's 200 touches here. No doubt about it going his way this next season. Minimum.
Yeah. TJ Parker, I think, has a potential to be a much more positive impact player on a team over the next decade than Jadarian Price. But how much would TJ Parker play as a rookie? Probably not that much, because he's a rookie edge. We've got DeMarcus Lawrence. We've got Uchenna Nwosu. We've got Derek Hall. Like, TJ Parker wouldn't get asked to do a lot. Not as much as Price is going to get asked to do. So this was a draft to address the immediate need rather than trying to build the best long-term roster. And maybe that's okay, but I don't believe that's how you build the best possible team over the long haul. So all that to say, I agree.
And just for those that might go, oh wait, we're more really excusing of this more than we're lamenting this year and understanding it more than any other draft. I think you guys would see me or Brendan kind of evaluating, because this draft was separate. This draft was different. This draft is weaker. It's got to be taken account, not just on a minor level of like with a shrug and like, yeah, that's just something people say, but no, it didn't just influence the way the philosophy went for Seattle in this draft. It influenced our whole division. up and down. You had a running back taken at number 3 overall who was not the same level of other guys who were taken behind him in the first round in the top 10 picks in recent years. There's a lot of telling items here that really illustrate this, the gazillion tight ends that went in the first 3 rounds. But with that said, you're going to find production. You're going to find a team that's going to be helped by these guys next year and on into the future. And we'll see where their ceiling goes, Brendan. But we're in alignment. I do think it's just that you got to, when you hear, well, they did go for need, it's not with the same way we look at it with the draft that would be super strong. We're like, man, this really hurts this year because you went up and down and really lost out on some sensational players with this methodology and approach, which the team has done in the past if we go back to 2000 teens and stuff.
Yeah. And, again, I think this draft overall so far has been about a B, something like that. I'd give it a B. So I'm not against it, but I think there was meat left on the bone here, and I am going to stand by that.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. All right, let's get to some of these donations here. Thank you for watching, folks. If you can, for me, hit a like button on both my side or Brendan's side, whichever may be watching, or both sides. And do please get subbed up today, build for our channels. It's the kind of thing that helps us out, helps our channels grow tremendously by doing both those two things. Start this off with Jerry Walker. Thank you for the $2 donation. He says, I am so tired of this fan base crying about your mod McCoy.
Yeah, like I said, he must be on one leg. He must have one leg where the other leg has just been chopped off by a chainsaw. And look, I love sticking to my evaluation of things, but this is a circumstance where you just have to assume that the doctors got in there and they found something terrible. And the rumor is that his surgery was botched and now he needs another one on his ACL.
Yeah.
So, I'm feeling bad for him right now. That guy should have been a top 10 pick. Now I don't even know if he's going to get drafted anymore because some doctor apparently doesn't know what he's doing. I don't know. That seems pretty unfair to me, but I think we just got to we got to trust the fact that 32 teams know what they're doing with McCoy, because I'm sure every team in the league knows how good McCoy was when he was healthy.
Yeah, this is where it can be a place where you see a McCoy drop to a spot, to Brennan's point, and I think to your point on this, Jerry, where he falls to a spot in the draft and you're like, there's a team that was just willing to take the minor risk that was at play on this guy. They're thinking more smarter, to where 32 teams, like Brendan said, passed 3 times on this guy, essentially. I know not exactly because some teams don't have those picks, but it's so essentially 32 teams 3 different times. When you get to that point for a guy's tape who's so good, the only explanation must be the single leg approach that Brendan talks about. And so you got to let that go as a fan and understanding it's got to be bad, and that these doctors now are smarter than ever at finding what's going to be really problematic in the long term. And that's the whole point of this process, is you don't want to bring in broken goods, because that's how you get no production from the position. It's not how you find a steal.
Yeah. And it sucks. And look, if he's there at our 6th round pick tomorrow, somehow I'm all over that. I'll spend a 6th round pick on a guy who could become an elite corner if medicals just break his way. But this isn't just one GM making this decision to have him fall out of the top 100. It is every GM in the league. Every GM in the league has had at least one opportunity, if not 2, to draft him, and they decided not to. So something's up. I think it's okay to defer to the experts in situations like this. Now, there are times where I think the NFL doesn't know what the heck is going on, and I'm willing to stick to that. And I'll see a player fall to the 5th round that I think deserves to go in the 2nd round, and I'll be like, no, I'm right. Everyone else is wrong, but not here.
It's kind of like, where Will Johnson fell last year, the Cardinals, was where it felt more like, okay, they're getting a steal here. Okay, maybe there's some cautionary stuff on the medicals, but this is actually them being able to really get a kind of a bit of steal in this situation, versus if Will had fallen all the way through the 3rd round, you'd know that knee was jacked up. Jacked up. Thank you, though, Jerry. Appreciate the donation. Me in the house, dropping a $20 pop. Thank you for that. Me. Kind as ever, man. You dropped a big old couple $100 donation on the stream today as well. Very kind of you, brother.
Very nice.
Hey, guys. You might have already covered this, but how do you feel about Neal's skill set?
Yeah, it's predicated on being physical, being a good run defender, and he's got that reach. He's got those long arms. He's got good press, although it's a little bit unrefined at times, but he's going to be a great press corner, and he's very explosive, which is why I say he's not fast, but he has very fast recovery speed. So,
yeah.
Some people have called it comparable to like a Reek Woolen. Some people have said it's comparable to Woolen with less speed. And I kind of see
more
where
physicality.
I kind of see where they're coming from. I kind of see where that comes from. I don't totally agree with it, but some people have said that.
Yeah, I can see it. I think everything Brendan said is pretty on point with it. Me, I think just add on top of it, the thing when you look at Mike McDonald's defense and you go, what's a quintessential thing you're looking for kind of from all defensive players? And I think the thing that always keeps standing out to me is that he above any defensive coach I think I've seen in recent history across the board, not just in his linebackers, not just in his defensive line, but in all 11 defensive players, he wants versatility and flexibility. And you see it in these two guys you've taken today and day two, that this is at the forefront of what they want to get done. And this is that type of guy that can do it. He can play press. He can play off. I agree with Brendan on what he said. Like the press looks really good, but there is room for growth. The off coverage looks good, but there is some room for growth. Might have a way of playing some slot snaps for you. Might have a way of playing some safety snaps. Always remembering that with this team, what is it like? I think Cousin said that they lie to you. They lie to you.
Yeah.
Or it may not Cousin. Somebody this I said that, and that's just it. They want to lie to you. And how do you lie to somebody? By showing a guy in a position like this that you know he can do. If he just plays the position by what he's showing pre-snap, I know he can do it. But if he could just roll to anything, if he can roll from outside corner to safety, to single high safety, that's hard for me to read as a quarterback pre to post snap, because then the safeties bear down and do some wild stuff underneath. And this is Mike McDonald's defense. And so the more a player can do in this defense, the more it just opens the playbook up for Mike to get crazy. And I don't think he's even, by the way, gotten warmed up with that yet. I think last year your front four was so good and your defense was so dominant. Mike didn't have to do his normal stuff. He felt like he could put his hands behind his heads at times, I think, and kind of go, they're good enough to get it done on their own, but he can bring that out at any time he wants. And a player like this just helps it come to life that much more.
Yeah. I think that Neal will fit right in. In some ways, he kind of makes me think of a Pete Carroll corner. He's got the same, like he's tall, he's got long arms, he's a zone guy, a little bit like that too, but there's a little something extra here as well with the explosiveness.
Yeah, agreed. It'd be like you'd have normally Pete Carroll in a 4.6 guy rather than the 1.59 is actually respectable and explosiveness with the jump. Oh, you said I agree there. William Tarkowski, and thank you again, William, me for that $20 drop. William, thank you for the $2 don't know. Hey B, what pick do you like better?
I like Neal better. I'm more confident that he'll be something. I could see a world where Clark just is too small and he tries to add weight and now he's too slow. I don't think it's impossible that he doesn't work out, but Neal, I'm pretty confident in.
Yeah, Neal's kind of my guy too here, William. I've had a soft spot for him throughout the process, and I did try to look at this process with these corners, especially because knowing we're going to probably target one of, who has that versatility to their game, who is less of a one-trick pony or a two-trick pony, and a guy that goes, hey, no, I bring it all. I can go zone, I can go man. I'm going to play the run really well. I got to play with a lot of spirit. Hell, we get a captain out here in Clark like we do. So I do go like to Neal just because I like where the value is at as well on top of the pick and the player and what he can bring in the long term. I think there's some safety to where he's going to be one of the floor guys in this draft, where maybe I don't see a huge ceiling to him, but I know that his floor is going to see him landing on an NFL football field and being a starter somewhere in this defense into the long term, especially. And so to get that at the end of the third round in this draft,
yeah,
I'm pretty happy with that.
Yep, I would agree.
Concierge with Nolan, thank you for the $5 donation. It's a workman type draft. Plug the depth lost in free agency, then get some UDFAs, then big swing midseason. Hashtag run it back. The rest of the NFC West was drunk.
Yeah, and it's not a bad thing. The thing that I just keep coming back to is clearly, in my mind anyway, this team did not like what they had at running back going into the draft. That's why they took Price. That's why they did what they did. Clearly, they didn't think much of their depth chart at running back. You could have done things differently to make it so that you didn't have that feeling about your running backs. And I would have preferred to spend a little bit more money on a free agent running back to feeling like you were obligated to take the best running back available at 32 in the draft. I'm not saying bring back Ken Walker. I'm not talking about that. I'm not saying you should have brought back Ken Walker to avoid this pick, but you could have gotten somebody like a Brian Robinson Jr., maybe a Rico Dowdle. There were a couple other guys as well. And just to make yourself feel a little bit more comfortable, there were things out there that you could have done.
Yeah, there were indeed. And hopefully it speaks to their conviction on Jadarian being a guy that they really have highly vaulted on there. And not just that it is a filling a need, but they see him as a guy that, we see a lot of projection here to be him even being a better pro than he was as a college back. Not just in the he starts now, but in actually, no, I mean, he really takes off. And we'll see on that. But I think you're right, Nolan. I think it was a workmanlike draft. That's why I say it's like I can come out and tell you a little bit on the surface of it. Well, there's a lot of need base in your approach to some of these picks, especially the first two. Brendan just talked a little bit about it. And in normal drafts, that might be a little bit more of this is a black mark on this draft or something, but not this particular draft necessarily, and not necessarily for the position the Seattle Seahawks organization finds themselves in. Not to mention the fact that, of course, John Schneider's earned some goodwill here to take whatever approach he wants, especially within what is a weak draft. You got your rule of thumb, state of value, don't go to need, but then you got your reasons to break rules. And I can think of no greater reason, Brendan, to break a rule as far as a philosophy going into the draft than to be this draft is legit, probably the weakest that we've seen in 20 years at this point, that we can say now going into it through 3 days.
Yeah, I'm down with that. I am down with that. And again, I know that this is kind of the wrong way to look at things, but we just won the Super Bowl. How mad are we going to get about this stuff?
Yeah, exactly. Amen. Amen. Mungles, thank you for the $2 donation. Says all three running backs in the West.
Yeah. By the way, I know you kind of touched on this, but what'd you think about Kalen Black going over Jonah Coleman and Mike Washington and Singleton and Katron Allen? Like, what's up with that?
I would track it to mainly the fact that they have a type that they're going for there that is kind of Shanahan's own kind of developed type, and it's I think changed a little bit through the years from even what his dad necessarily look for in the position. But there's just a level, and I saw it in the Senior Bowl. He was the best back at the Senior Bowl. There was a level of that explosion to the edge thing that I probably get overly obsessed with, that you could feel for him on tape, that when you talk about those other guys, Brendan, that's the thing they're missing. Like, Katron Allen, Jonah Coleman, those are going to be more inside runners, and this system's outside zone. And the whole thing with it is that those first 3 or 4 steps to get to the edge are vital, that you're quick with those 4 steps, because the blocking is not at the edge. The receiver's taking the cornerback on a ride up the field while the left tackle next to him is taking his guy on a ride up the field. It's instead those guys position themselves on the block to shield, and then you hit it at just the right time to bust through. And so that requires a guy that's got to have that base quickness to that spot. And unfortunately, this draft was just missing that across the board. Singleton too, probably didn't have it. Emmett Johnson, I know everyone says, well, his testing speed's faster on the field, right? But what did he test at as far as the combine? Like,
yeah, well, it wasn't good.
4.46.
Yeah, it was pretty bad actually, and he's small too. So he runs like a power back, but he's small. I think he's going to last like 2.5 years in the league and be done.
Yeah, I think that it just came down to there's a real chance, Brendan, we kind of pulled the rug out from under them with the Jadarian Price pick, that maybe that's what they were going to do. And then they looked at what was remaining and they got a little bit desperate down the line on this one when it came to the backs. Going, there's nobody else and the position's thin and we got to find an answer. And McCaffrey's not going to last a full season. No way.
Okay. I guess I don't completely hate it, but I still don't like the value there. I had Black in like the 5th round or something.
I don't like the value. I'll tell you that. I had a similar place grade on him. I had him in the late 4th round, but basically into the 5th. So we're about in the same place on him. Mingley. Mingley. Thank you for the $5 donation over on Brendan's side. Thank you for the show, guys. Appreciate you. What you guys thought on how we position the division after free agent and a few draft picks?
I think the division has a pretty clear hierarchy. You still have the Cardinals way at the bottom. I don't think anything they did in this draft, even though some of it helped them, I don't think it's going to make up the difference, right? They're still probably going to go 0-6 in the division. I don't think they're going to win a single game.
Yeah.
Agreed. And then you have the Niners, who still have enough, but I think we all know they're going to get to the end of the season and be incredibly broken down again, because that's what they do. And they built their team around old players, and they'll eke out enough wins to be a playoff team. And then you've got the Rams and the Seahawks at the top. And look, if you want to argue that the Rams have bumped ahead of the Seahawks at this point, I don't think that is a unfounded position. but I don't believe they've leapfrogged us so clearly that there's nothing to talk about there.
Yeah, I've maintained going into this draft, I didn't think the Rams had done enough walking into this draft to overtake us. I think the third youngest roster in the NFL is going to improve next year, and I don't think the Rams are necessarily going to improve in any given one area where this guy's going to get so much more better and that guy's going to no, your guys are going to be about the same, hopefully at best. Slash, you might have some reduction in play at times from guys that are starting to get a little bit older, like let's say a Puna Ford. I maintain that we're still the top rung here. I maintain that the Rams were very disappointing with this draft. And while it is still close, we remain the top dog here. We got players that whatever they want to point to, we lost. And while we gained these two corners and you guys lost three guys. Yeah, but we just put three guys on today that are going to put production on the field next year collectively. And last year wasn't about individual stars from this team. We had that. It was, as John and Mike have said, the 70-man roster you could put together. Those all collective contributors that can bring this thing to center stage, like your Okadas and the Drake Thomas or the Tyrese Knight, and filling in the role in special teams or coming in when he needed to start in the way that he did at those times. That's what you need. And these guys we got today are going to bring that. It may not be this big impact, but it's going to help. And I don't think those Rams players are going to help much next year. I don't think the Niner players are going to help much next year. Romello Hyde will probably be on the field they got to put him in only knowing passing situations. So, okay. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. And the other thing to think about here, I think we all know the Seahawks are signing an edge rusher after the draft. A lot of people think it'll be Dante Fowler, could be Clowney, could be Von Miller, could be a couple other guys. They're going to get somebody, and that somebody's going to be an improvement over what they had. Like, that's going to matter. I believe that if we sign, say, Dante Fowler, he's going to do more for this team in 2026. I mean, than any of the Rams draft picks will do for their team in 2026 so far.
Good point. Yeah.
So that has to be factor that in. It's a consideration.
As well as too, it's like you still have the ability with all this money to do so many extra things. Like, we're not necessarily done roster building, whatever we do with this through day 3. As far as you got $33 million of money, you got no dead money. You can pull some levers here contractually. You bring a couple of those edges in, vet guys, because they're still all out there. The compensatory stuff's out the door now. You got a lot of ability here to really still top off the tank, Brandon.
Yeah, you could trade for Thibodeau, and I don't know if I even want to do that, but
I don't want to do it. It's such a
yeah, I don't want to do it either. But he would make this team better. I do believe that he's better than what's the guy's name, Onugiogu or whatever. Like, I do believe that he would.
Clowney.
Yeah, that's true. But I'm just saying that's another thing that you could do. You can afford it. You're one of the teams that can still afford it. And there are a lot of teams that might want to do it that can't afford it. Again, I don't want it. But the point I'm trying to make is that he's better than your fourth edge right now. Who's your fourth edge right now? Tyreek Smith?
No, I would say it's going to be Jared. It's not Ivy is your fourth probably.
Ivy. Yeah, thank you. Jared Ivy.
Morrison Ivy.
Yeah. So there are things that are still going to happen here. And with the Rams, with all the money they're going to have to give out this offseason, I don't think they can do anything to improve their team now. I would be very surprised if they were able to make an impact signing, knowing they've got to extend Puka, Avila, and Turner, and there's one other guy. It's not Verse.
Oh, Young,
Byron Young, yeah.
But that's folks, just that's 17 and a half. That's 27. That's 43 per year on these individual deals we're talking. And Kobe Turner's probably minimum 25 to 26. Those are chunks. Those are chunk deals. Those are chunky. That's Campbell soup chunky. So, and they're not sitting on even our cap space right now, Brendan. So you go, you come back to that tight end pick. Why was that tight end pick made? Was it because you just loved him so much? Or it's like, well, Colby's getting expensive.
Yeah, and I guess this might help them save money. I don't know how the contract looks, but I'm sure you've heard that they're looking at extending Stafford in the next couple of weeks here. They're apparently very close on a Stafford extension.
Well, there's a lot of more pressure on him to do it now because they just took his replacement. So he's probably coming back to it being like, you better show me the money because you're showing me all the signs that you're trying to leave me on somebody's doorstep tomorrow. Not that they're doing that, but that he's just, quarterbacks get pissy about this type of stuff. So it will mean a deal will get done, to your point on that. Won't be shocking. But to your point also, that's less money. I mean, they can put in guarantees if they want, but it's still less money to spend that you can't take from next year then if it's going into next year. So they're kind of like pushed into a little bit of a corner here by what they can do. And I'm not impressed by what they've done if they're trying to overtake us. I think we're going to be a little bit better. I think we found production from the draft. We got money to spend and we're not done. I mean, imagine if you come back tomorrow, it's like, well, we're a future first round pick for Crosby and this for Crosby. Like, holy crap. Things look even more different. And we got the ability to still do that kind of move. Not even him necessarily, but just that kind of move.
Yeah.
Nolan, thank you for the $5 donation. Anthony Bradford has compromising pictures of John Schneider, allegedly.
And we'll find out when contract extension time comes up with Bradford next year.
I think with Ben, Brendan mentioned this point. Benton, the offensive line coach, has a real affinity probably for Bradford. And this is part of why you draft him initially, is because guys don't come built like this that can move like he can move, even though it doesn't always show up at times on tape. And that does have you dreaming with the guy if you can just refine it down and get it better. And it was his first year in the system. And maybe there's a lot of reason to believe he can grow in that. He's been starting for years in this league now. He's moving into his physical prime. He's heading into a free agent contract year. You know, there is maybe some reason here to get a little bit of hope here that he can be a little bit more improved even beyond what he's been. And he's, to Brendan's point, not quite as bad. It's just that the bad snaps stand out so heartily because he's got his back turned to the line of scrimmage and he doesn't know where the quarterback is, doesn't know where his guy's at. It's the worst of reps, or he's like face first in the ground and his defenders buck naked running after the quarterbacks. And you're like, bro. But there are some really good reps in there too. And there's some dominant reps in there too.
Yeah, I would say for the first 3.5 months of the year, overall, if you were to compare Gray Zabel and Anthony Bradford, I don't think that Zabel was radically better than Bradford. I think that late in the year and then in the postseason, Zabel separated himself. But yeah, Zabel didn't make the ugly mistakes, but I also didn't think he had the killer reps that Bradford had. So I thought it balanced out. It's just a matter of perception, right? It's just a matter of people decide to fixate on certain elements of the player, and it doesn't take in the whole picture.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the degree of difficulty is also a little higher on the left guard. But the point you mentioned about initial sustaining of block, Zabel really good on that. I will get on the initial sustain. I'll be in the initial right position, whereas Bradford has a lot of initially not being anywhere close to the right position and whiffing and going to whiff city way too often. So we're getting another year of him. Maybe they feel like Haynes can develop as well, man. He was a great zone blocker as far as his grade in college. So to the point of him supposedly being a good, it still is there maybe inside of him somewhere deep down. Yeah. But we'll have to just kind of
I'm skeptical. In fact, when we're done with all this, I do want to ask you a little bit of a question about what's going to go on tomorrow.
All right. Now let's pop it up. We got one more dono here from Daniel W. Thank you for the $2 donation. Says Colton Hood, Washington, or Price plus Neal. As far as I think what he's mentioning is an alternative combination here, Brendan. Am I reading that right?
I think so. Yeah. Okay. I think I'd go Hood in Washington. It's tough though, because Washington might just not fit what we do because his style of running is very different.
And he's fallen all the way out of the third. Another guy that the NFL is telling you what they think about this guy, and that he's falling all the way out of the third with teams that do need running back help. And seemingly is the last kind of him and Jonah is kind of the last two real viable options in that light.
Yeah. I really like Colton Hood though. I like him better than Neal. I think there's some similarities there, but I like Hood a lot. That's tough though, man, because again, what you said about Washington is spot on. Like Kalen Black went over Mike Washington. That has to give you pause.
I mean, it's no matter what your evaluation is, that's the stuff where it's one thing for a couple teams to be wrong. That's going to happen and you might see it. But when we come back to it being 30 NFL teams, 32 NFL teams seeing something, that's a trend. That's a canary in the coal mine. And that you got to pay attention to a little bit to it, no matter what you might think on it. I think the thing with Colton Hood that would have been tough too is, okay, as you go Colton, is that I just don't think necessarily Jadarian lasts a long period of time. I'm still not kind of out of pocket to thinking somebody would have maybe popped in there, like even a Giants team there with the guy in the mend and Cam Scatterbo. I could see a couple different teams in there coming up and maybe doing something. So he might have, I don't think he would last due to our pick. We would have probably had to, package pick, but I did like Colton Hood like Brendan did quite a bit. So you would be Washington, Hood, and Neal. And is that a better way for me? It might have been a better way for me overall as far as the kind of corner getting in Hood. So I think he was very close to being almost a first round talent. I think there's a universe where KC would have taken him in the first round if things had played out differently for them in this draft.
Yeah. I had Hood in my early second, so I was right there too. So, by the way, did you think the Chiefs needed to trade up for Delane? I thought that he was going to be there at 9. I was kind of confused as to why the Chiefs felt like they needed to do that.
I think we come back to the Jermod McCoy situation. So that starts to make them get jumpy and freak out because they're like, well, we do have, I saw it as those two guys being the first round corners in this draft. I was right in the line with Hood, but I did have a high second round grade like you did. And so maybe they saw it the same way, was that we've lost this McDuffie impact. We need to bring impact and not just a good corner into play. This is the last impact guy because McCoy's knee's about to explode. And then you go, okay. But then again, that's what I saw from this draft throughout, Brendan, was a drive of fear and need. And I didn't see people really operating with like a lot of vision in their approach. I thought there's just a couple of teams that I kind of gravitated towards, feeling like they really had good collective day 1 and 2s where you're not seeing some real big warts on the end of it. Teams to me like, the Titans to me had a really, really nice draft, but boy, there's some bad
I didn't like that Tate pick. That at number 4, you can trade back and get Carnell Tate to me. I didn't love that, but other than that, I agree.
Yeah. I mean, it's not a great, that's probably the worst of the value there for them, but the value is so great on the other two. And he's going to be a functionally fine player for them. Like, he's maybe not going to give them a star level play at the receiver position, but he'll be functional and a good player for them. You're right. Yeah. Your point stands, it definitely does stand, but, I do think that does make it a little better for them. But that's a team trying to, add whatever they can. And you just, Keldrick Falk at the end of the first round, Anthony Hill at the end of the second round. You found 2 starters on defense and a receiver that's going to be instantly your number 1 receiver for Cam Ward. So,
yeah, I think the Dolphins are having I like what the Dolphins are doing overall until they took that one receiver that I thought should have been a 6th round pick. Yeah. Wasn't it?
Yeah. The Douglas one was out of pocket. That's what I'm saying about the wart thing, is that even on the good ones, there's like this one wart sort of sticking out where you're like, what happened there? I don't get you guys going, but Proctor, Rodriguez, Chris Johnson, you're right. The tight end was a little weird, but then they got Chris Bell. It's like, well, you got the Bell with the come back off the ACL, might be a first round rated guy if he didn't have the ACL thing going on. So, but I think like, I don't like New England's draft. I think that's kind of weird in my opinion. I guess like Minnesota's just dealing with their defense and up the middle. That's kind of fine.
That Minnesota pick was kind of out of pocket. And I know you liked Banks more than most people, but that was a little bit wacky to me.
I didn't like him at 18. I liked him if he's like, you take that foot risk, dude, at 32. If they're taking the foot risk at 18, and I guess the medical's fine on him, but it's been a multiple time problem for him. It's not just a one-off thing there. So it's even the Raiders would start to do some salt. Like, I didn't like really the Mendoza for value, but then you love Stukes and the Crawford one's pretty good. But then Zune, what are the Raiders doing? You got 3 centers there. Jackson Powers has no pathway to center now, so you're playing him out of position throughout the full totality of his rookie contract. Zune wants to play center, but you're playing your centers $27 million per year now. So you're going to play him at what, right guard? So you got 3 centers playing on your interior line. Okay.
That's what I think they're going to do. They're going to play him at guard, and it's not going to work very well. But I guess at least they waited until the end of the draft to do that. And I've come around on Mendoza. I still think he's a bad fit for Kubiak's offense, but I do think he's a really good prospect. I've come around on him a little bit.
That's fair enough. And I might be on my line on this one. I don't think he'll be a bad player. It's just, it's a Kirk Cousins outlook. And I think Kirk Cousins type players should be taken in more of like the top of the 3rd round, not at the very first pick in overall. It's all just a back to value for me, Brendan. I'm a valuist. Mm-hmm. I'm a pure valuist in my heart. I can't change my ways in that manner. Chase Stern, thank you for the $5 donation. Me and my brother were joking all day about the Cardinals reaching on Beck. Then they actually did it. It was so funny. Wild to watch, man. You watch desperation in real time. And that's what you saw there with that pick with Beck. Cardinals blew me away with that direction of things, and they had me a little scared with Pisantes. Got me a little nervous with Pisantes, but I was like, oh no, same old Cardinals. Okay, we're good.
Yeah, you know, if they had taken Nussmeier there, I probably wouldn't have said anything because I think that he's more valuable. But Beck was like really surprised. I would have liked Nussmeier because I don't think that team should be taking a quarterback at all right now. But at least Nussmeier, I'm like, third round value in this draft, that's okay. But
I'd get him, man.
Beck,
Yeah.
I don't understand the Beck thing at all.
I'd get the Nussmeier thing too, because you go, okay, well, it's the injury thing that you're worried about, but this is a coach's son. A lot of starts at the college level. If he'd been healthy last year, would have been vaulted up higher. Has a fairly live arm. I'm not saying it's like super arm strength, but compared to Beck, he's freaking John Elway. And not scared to rifle it in there. Beck can play gun shy. I see it the same way, especially at the top of the third round, the very first pick in the top of the third round. Like at that point, you got to go a little harder than that.
I mean, who are the players available at that pick? It's like, God, who could they have taken instead? Like they could have taken Crawford, the Raiders guy that they took. They could have taken Takario Davis, who I think is a good amount of fun. They could have taken even a guy like Malachi Fields would have been better than that. Yeah.
Oh, Halsey, the safety, AJ Halsey. Yeah. I think they lost Thompson this offseason. So I think Jacoby Lane as well. I liked him a little bit better than Malachi Fields. I think he could have been interesting in there for them. Dalen Everett was there on the board for them in that spot of things. Pregnon. What if they'd gone Pregnon and Basantes? And they're like, we're going to move one to right guard, one to left guard. And then you got their center in there, the Froholt kid. Oh, hey, look, now we're on the pathway to actually turning our offensive line to something, especially since we just freaking drafted a running back that we're trying to maximize to the ultimate. You know, God forbid we do that. So I maybe, and I don't think they necessarily might have gone to Pregnon because they just might be committed to running the gap-based stuff out there. They've been very gap-based in the past, and signing Algiers again, it may be where they're just kind of leaning to in that manner where a zone-based guy ain't going to work for them. But any of those would have been, to me, a better solution to this than what they did do.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Which is throw away the damn pick. Seahawks Gaming, thank you for the $2 donation on Brennan's side. Steelers turned the Pickens trade pick into Drew Aller.
Why do they hate Will Howard, man? What are they doing to my boy Will Howard? Like, I think Will Howard can be good, and he's just never going to get a chance.
I think that they just hoping, they know Rodgers ain't coming back, so they're just like, give us one of the two of them's got to pop, right? One of the two of them. We'll just have one of these two guys go. So, and in Howard, they got the guy, high floor guy, and then in Aller, they got the high ceiling guy, Brendan. So they get a bit of the both two worlds there.
Yeah, I guess. They must know Rodgers isn't coming back at this point, that's going to be a pretty bad team this year, isn't it?
Well, it's just, and then you start to unwind things. Why make the Michael Pittman trade? Why last year, if you didn't have any kind of real long-term plan at the quarterback position or even doing the DK Metcalf trade? Why did you re-sign TJ Watt to the extension that you did there when he looked like he was on the downswing and this roster was getting older? And same thing for Hayward. And same old story with some of these teams out there, Brendan, like we've seen with the Niners, of they sometimes can't call that ball and hit the reset button. They just keep kind of trying to push the dial and twist the dial a little bit further into the future and hope they can hold off Father Time. But then Father Time just hits that much harder when he does.
Yeah, it's a very, very weirdly structured team they've got over there right now.
It is indeed. It is indeed. Well, I want to thank you guys tonight for tuning on in. If you can, hit that like button again and sub on either side here. See either over Seahawks Brendan Nelson or the Hawks Nest, of course, my way too here. Mm-hmm. Brendan, any last thoughts on this draft or anything for tomorrow as far as outlook goes?
Right. So we don't pick for like 87 picks. So it seems kind of pointless to speculate on who we should take because we have no idea who's going to be there. What I want to ask you, though, is would you be interested in moving a player or even two to try to get some extra capital in this draft? So the options, as I see it, we'll go through them one by one real quick. Would you trade Oluwatimi to acquire a pick or move up with one of your picks?
I think the only way is if you've got a center that you like up on the board that you gravitate towards, you know, really, really feeling like is going to be more of a scheme fit athletically, especially with Olatimi. I mean, let's face it, Olatimi is not part of the plan here past this year. So you are in a position of like, well, might as well get something in there that's going to be more multi-year on this, especially with Sundell heading into a contract year. So Sam Hecht, Connor Liu, Maybe even with Parker Brailsford, he's a pass blocking center, but you could say, okay, but at least 3 years cheap, doesn't cost anything. Take him into day 3 late. Yeah, I could see them doing it with that. I'd be less likely to do it with a guy like Tyrese Knight, who I think I might more need to call upon that
Tyrese Knight's
at
the other
some
one.
point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just think he provides both Will and Mike, not just stable, but almost kind of like impactful backup at either position potentially is what he brings. So that's a 2-for-1. And remember with Ernest Jones last year, there was times where he was kind of, I think, dragging that knee around still, even after the surgery. Probably want to keep our mind aware of that.
Okay, so you'd be open to it with Oluwatimi, but not so much with Knight.
Can't do it with Knight. We gotta have that depth. Needs to still be another part. That was a real centerpiece of this team last year. I'd like to see it remain next year. It's already a little challenged with some of the losses that we've had. So, reinforce today. Let's keep, though, what we got for the most part, unless there's a center here that, again, back to that old team, he's not an athletic fit to the scheme. He's probably better suited to maybe a gap-based system or a pass-happy system. So send him to something like that and get a guy in here that can be more of that, especially Connor Liu. Might have the best center in the draft. If you can go get him right now off the back of an Oluwatimi trade because of the ACL tear that he had in October.
Would you be open to moving Christian Haynes, and then trying to get a guy we met with a top 30 visit to replace him, Bo Stevens, the Iowa guy?
I didn't find myself as convinced that Bo Stevens was a right guard as much as I found myself convinced he was a left guard. He doesn't feel as much power guy in there in what he'll do at the right guard. But look, he's coming from Iowa. They definitely lean off power and running, and that's at the center of what they do. It's at the core of what they do. I wouldn't hate it. I'm never going to get mad at investment in the offensive line, Brennan. You can call me a stupid man, but I've said it time and time again. There is no team in NFL history that has said, in retrospect, you know what we did wrong? You know where we really took that bad turn at Albuquerque? What? Well, we invested too much in our offensive line. Teams have said it about receivers. Teams have said it about pass rushers. Teams have said it about this position group or that. Safeties for us. No one's ever said it, though, about offensive line. You do that, I'm going to be perfectly happy, pig in mud kind of happy there.
Mm-hmm. So the concept of trading Haynes for even a 7th round pick and then getting a different guard with one of those late picks, is that something that's interesting to you at all?
Not really is on that, because this comes back to the depth argument where who's my backup center now? Who's the guy coming in there that's going to be, the thing with Oluwatimi is he's not great, and he's not a scheme fit, but he's also a guy that's played for multiple years now, knows what's going on when he's out there. I know he'll be assignment correct. I know he'll see blitzes right. I know he'll call protections correctly. I don't know if I'm going to get that with another center that I just flow on out there, and I'm giving that away at the 7th round point. I think that there's a point of this where you go, hey, look, there's a cost of doing business to trying to repeat and keeping the depth, kind of as I was saying earlier on in a second ago. I think that that's kind of a vitally important thing to this football team, not just a minor thing that if we're in a position to do so. No, make it a point of emphasis. And if you're just giving away players at that point, I mean, what's that 7th round pick going to be? What's that guard going to be in the 7th round in this draft?
I think you could make an argument that Haynes needs a change of scenery, though. It's not working here. I feel fairly confident that there's nothing there that we're going to be able to get. It's not like this guy's 22 years old. He's 26.
I'm not going to cry if they moved on from him. I wouldn't be sitting there like, how could they do this? You got to have him up. I'm not, to your point. So that just goes back to Ben. That goes back to McDonald and what they think about his outlook of things. Kind of surprising me. And remember, just maybe they didn't like Dunker, but again, surprising you have a Dunker. If you're thinking that Haynes is that guy, you'd pass in that moment. Maybe it's that they love Neal just that much at that point. But I'd be okay with it. If you go with anything on this offensive line, as far as outside of maybe moving Sundell, be it Bradford or be it Haynes or Oluwatimi, I think that all of those parts are kind of in a little bit of a state of question, and that if somebody out there is going to give you value for them and you can find an answer that's going to give you even improvement at the position or free up assets because of it, then I got no issue doing that.
Yeah, and if Bradford doesn't start for us, I don't think he'll be on the team. He's making too much money to be a backup because of the performance boost that he got this offseason. If he's not going to start, you got to move him, I think.
100% agreed. I think that you're also got to think about the process of a guy that's started for all these games for you, and then you're sitting him in his contract year, and then how there's stuff that this doesn't just happen in a clinical environment. There's
Right.
emotions involved and stuff to take into account there too.
Yeah. So yeah, that's just what I wanted to ask about, the possibility of moving a player to pick up some extra capital tomorrow.
What do you want to see from your team tomorrow, Brendan? Give me one thing.
Well, again, it's really hard to know who's going to be there, but I would like to see maybe one of these edge rushers slip a little bit and maybe pick up one of them, because that's to me the one area where you haven't really done much, and I want to at least have some insurance in case maybe you can't come to an agreement with the veterans out there. And I'd hate to get to June or July or August and be like, oh, we still haven't found anybody. Our fourth edge is Jared Ivey, and we're going to try to win the Super Bowl with Jared Ivey being an important part of this rotation. So I'm thinking about that. Maybe a nose tackle is going to find his way down there, like a Capehart, the Clemson guy. That wouldn't be bad. But it's just going to depend on how the board falls. If Jermod McCoy is there at 188, I'm going to do it. I don't care if he literally had his leg amputated. Just having that guy's aura in the room has got to make all your other cornerbacks play a little bit better.
I love it, man. I love it. David Pugh finishing us up with a $5 don't know. Thank you guys for all of your support today. Kind you are as ever. Any concern about the age and lack of quality depth, the edge position? Sorry, I've been talking a lot today, folks. So the voice is just, any lack of quality depth at the edge position up to this point. I see a world where that's the weakest link on our D. Well, right on Brennan's point, on the heels of Brennan's point he was just making.
Yeah, I do think edge is a problem, but the thing to keep in mind is we were never going to fix that in this draft, because with rare exception, rookie edge rushers do not make big impacts on NFL teams. You have to be either a Will Anderson level player, just somebody who is so good they can overcome that, or you have to be like the one in a million. Like I remember in 2006, the Bears had a rookie edge rusher named Mark Anderson who had 14 and a half sacks and probably should have won Defensive Rookie of the Year. So short of that, the guys you get as edge rushers at 32 overall or 64 overall or whatever, they're going to be more like the rookie Boye Mafe or rookie Derek Hall. They're just kind of there and they don't make a big impact. And you weren't going to fix that in this draft. Even TJ Parker, as much as I love TJ Parker, and I think he could have helped a little bit, he was not going to fix this problem if you signed him or drafted him at 32.
Yeah, we start out to me from this, David, and I don't disagree with anything that Brendan would say on this, and that we start out from this and saying, okay, we all agree that there could use some edge reinforcement. Bang, we start from a point of universal agreement. Now we go to how do we accomplish that to actually get improvement? Not just to maybe replace what a guy like Mafe has leaving out the door, but can we improve upon that? Understanding that he didn't have a great baseline necessarily that can't be cleared mightily. And then we go, can there be a market opportunity to do so? And so when I look at this draft, if I'm not mistaken, it's like, 11, 12 edges go before you pick in the second round in this draft, which was not necessarily a strong edge draft. I think everybody universally would add like 3 edges that were going to be taken in the first round, and more than that got taken because teams are always going to reach for that position. Brendan just made the point about especially getting outside the first round, how little production in the first round, how little production in the first year you get from those players, which is absolutely the truth. And it's a hardened truth. It isn't just kind of a truth. Well, it depends on who they draft. Who are we talking? It's like, no, go back and look at the data at second, third round edge rushers in their first year, say nothing of their second year. So you go, okay, where is the market opportunity? And I know I talk about Jadeveon Clowney, but it doesn't have to be Jadeveon Clowney. It can be a Cam Jordan. Cam Jordan got 11 sacks on a New Orleans Saints team last year that was playing from behind every single week, just about. Think about that. I don't care about his age. He's the fourth edge. I ain't asking him to play 40 snaps a game. He goes out there and gives me 20 snaps. He can't go give me 8 or 9 sacks on $6-7 million a year. I can't double up and do that and Dante Fowler. Like that to me seems like a no-brainer as far as that. First, I bring in this edge in the late second round who becomes the 12th edge that I take off the board, who's going to give me maybe a sack or 2 and marginal run defense next year when I put him out on the field. So, from my standpoint, David, I'm actually not, because I think John's going to play this card. The only reason he hasn't is because of the compensatory game. Because if he signed him prior to the draft, you lose the compensatory picks next year. So you're just doing this to wait to when you can get him for less it cost.
Yeah, for whatever it's worth, Dan Viens thinks there's about a 90% chance we will sign Fowler sometime next week. So
yeah. And I think that it makes sense why they've waited on this, because you're like, yeah, now we get 4 compensatory picks next year. So why sign him? Just tell Dante, look, you're getting the same money. Just wait. You can see we haven't spent the money. You got it sitting here. We promise you. You know, we're an upright organization. We're not going to pull the rug out from you on this. So bing, bang, boom, you sign him, and now you look at this edge group and it is better. Like Fowler is a better player historically in what he's brought to the table than Mafe. He was higher drafted. He's had more productivity. He is a power edge type in how he operates. It's all very much a fit to him, and he's going to be dirt cheap for what he's going to bring.
Yeah, and if it's not Fowler, there are a bunch of other guys you can get. So, we talked about it before.
Yeah,
but
you got a bunch. It doesn't have to be just this or that guy. There's a bunch of guys that fit this bill.
Yeah, Von Miller is still available, by the way, and he regrets his decision last year.
Well, that's why I say you could double up on this and you could go 5 deep here, knowing that you're a little older, knowing you have a Lawrence and a Chenna and a Fowler and a Miller, but that's still a hell of a rotation. And who cares? If you're telling those guys to play 100 miles an hour because they're not only going to have to play this many snaps, and they're giving you real good play on the back of those, reduced snaps, doesn't matter. Whatever it takes to get that top end production from the position.
Right. So yeah, I am worried about edge, but that was not going to get fixed over the last couple of days.
Yeah. And the great news about this, David, is I think these signings will come very fast, or at least the Fowler signing will come very fast after the draft ends. And that'll give us all a little bit more of the warm and fuzzy feeling as to what goes on. And let's not forget, $33 million, as much as cap space as just about anybody in the NFL, only $500,000 of dead money, the least amount of dead money in the NFL of any NFL team. So you have a lot of space, a lot of flexibility, more moves that they can make at any time with a general manager who's shown a willingness in the past to improve this team 365, not just from March to May.
Right. And look, Clowney might not sign until September. He might just be like, I want to skip the offseason. Like
he's not a big training camp guy, man. He doesn't, it's hot. It's hot.
Yeah.
It's really hot.
Yeah. And, I understand that Seattle's not the place that everybody wants to hang out. He's an East Coast guy. He likes to hang out in Carolina. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a little more southern too in that way. So I get it. Let's get him in here nonetheless. If we got to wait, I don't mind waiting. Well, you guys aren't waiting. You're here checking this out, hanging with us tonight. And we really appreciate that. You can be watching anything, anywhere. There's a lot of definitely content out there to check out, but you're here rocking with us through this process. And it's really much appreciated here as we're 11 at night here. I want to thank Brandon, man, for rocking with me through this draft coverage. We'll be, of course, doing a wrap up next week, but tomorrow we're going to be a little bit tapped out by the end of day 3 and another long live stream day. So we probably won't do a wrap up tomorrow, especially the only 2 picks, but we will come back around this next week and do kind of a final wrap up of this draft and our thoughts on this. Really appreciate you guys rolling with us through this off season. I know Mariner baseball's in play and all that, and we're through football seasons, getting the dead winter, but thank you guys for hanging with us here throughout this draft coverage. It's been another real fun year, Brendan.
Yeah, it's been fun. And if we can have fun with a draft like this, with picks like this, then we know how to have fun with any draft.
Amen. It goes back to that Rolling Stones. Sometimes you don't get what you want, but you get what you need. You know what I mean? Just to get what you need. Koken, thank you for the $2 donation, brother. Very kind of you as well. Finishing up with a great message. Love both of your guys' channels. 12s, have it best. Who's got it better? Nobody. Nobody, right, Koken.
Not right now.
Well, you're very kind, man, for all of your support to the channel as well. You guys are amazing. We really do appreciate you. We'll be back both with our live streams tomorrow on both of our ends, so do come in and check it out on either end of that. And who knows? You never know. Seattle might make some wild moves tomorrow. Feel like, hey, money's in the bank. We've taken care of the needs that we had to address. Now we can go crazy. So tune on in and check us out. Let's see what the Seattle Seahawks do on day 3 and see if they can wrap this up right and be the best drafting team in the NFC West. Thank you for doing this, Brendan. Thank you for watching. We will be back soon, folks. But until next time, please don't you ever forget. Don't you dare. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.